Hi, y'all. It's Bridget Cutchaw with Real Things Living. Today, my guest is Holly Bertone. She is a certified holistic health coach, a motivational speaker, a #1 Amazon bestselling author, and host of your Comeback Story podcast. Can you say hi, Holly?
Hi, how are you, Bridget? Thanks so much for having me on the show. And I really look forward to connecting with your listeners.
I really like what you're doing, and I think my understanding is you're helping mostly women with their midlife stories, right? We all have
Yes.
issues.
Oh,
Midlife
yeah,
is different for everybody.
it really
All
is.
have different experiences, and you have an amazing background, and I think you're taking those lessons, is that the right word? And helping other people. I
Yeah.
guess the first thing that came to mind is what got you to become a certified holistic health coach? Because I believe, I kind of incorporated that into my life. So what made you go down that path?
Yeah, thank you. And first, I just want to acknowledge you for you and your journey and, taking the big old mess with cancer and everything and, turning it around and turning it into this message and sharing this wonderful
Right.
podcast with the world. So,
I don't use the F word, but sometimes I give it the middle finger. So I
yeah.
have to
It's
use,
always great to connect with a warrior sister who's just
right.
bringing a huge light to the world.
Right.
So
That's right. You had cancer as well. So maybe that's
yeah,
kind of both of us. We're like, okay, we need to help ourselves heal. There's not just
yes,
one way to heal, right?
yeah. So I actually start the journey. We're only going to hang out here for 60 seconds. Don't worry, I'm not going the whole way back to kindergarten.
Yeah.
But when I was about 10 years old, one of my favorite things to do as a kid, we had this huge dining room table. And most, girls are playing with Barbies or out running around. I mean, back in the 70s, we're just like totally feral. And, but I love to take three different jigsaw puzzles, like 500,000 pieces, big ones, dump them out on this with this huge dining room table, mix them all up, and then put them back together. And like the kid from the Sixth Sense, like I see dead people, like I was like I see patterns, and I was just like that's just how my brain has always worked, and what's always like lights me up. And when I was 17 years old, I was like I want to go work for the FBI. And I really wanted
Wow.
to, get involved in psychology and work in behavioral analysis. Well, I never made it to behavioral analysis, but I did work for the FBI for 13 years. And it was just such a great experience. And I came in post 9/11 to help them with, this was the internet was still fairly new, systems were still fairly new, and the FBI and all the other agencies got publicly criticized because they weren't talking to each other or themselves. So with a project management background, I didn't do like I wasn't an agent, but I came in from a project management and data analysis side and helped to combine all of these disparate pieces so that they can start talking to each other. And it was just a lot of fun, especially again, kind of post 9/11. FBI it was just very rewarding and a dream come true, like literally a childhood dream come true. So you're seeing the through line, right? Like just putting all the patterns and the pieces together. Well, 2010 was when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I went through the traditional surgery, chemo, radiation, but my health never improved. I just kept getting sicker and sicker after treatment ended. So I ended up getting diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease, which turned into just years of debilitating chronic fatigue. And so bad that at one point I just was bedridden and I couldn't work anymore. And I was literally forced to resign. And that caused, first of all, just months of just marinating in my own misery. I mean, I was just like, my entire identity was working there. Like that was everything to me. And at the time I was married, I had a young stepson, and, taking care of my family was the other big piece of my identity. And I couldn't do either. Both were taken away. And at one point, I just woke up and I was like, you know what? I'm not okay. Like, this is not living. Like, I'm not okay like this. And functional medicine was still fairly new, but I was like, I'm just going to figure it out. And I took the probably longest road on the history of the planet to figure it out. But I ended up becoming a holistic health coach. I learned every single lesson of what doesn't work to get to what works. And it was a lot of just not just the traditional path, but the stuff that no one likes to talk about. And again, taking that big old mess, dumping all the pieces out on the table, kind of figuring out, mixing them up, putting them back together. So I did it then for my own healing journey. And I was like, you know what? This is something that this is a calling. Like I need to do this. And really what I found is with the holistic health coaching that I do is my sweet spot is in that mindset piece of it. Like we all have the things, but it's how do we come back home to ourselves? Because there's all this competing noise, all of these competing agendas, like everyone's screaming at us from social media to our families to the internal noises in our own heads. And it's really to get that quiet to come back to say, okay, what is best for me and my journey? And I really like being that pattern interrupt, especially for women, the 40s and 50s and kind of that midlife range where our bodies are changing, our lives are changing, like just our identities are changing. And we're just like kind of flailing around like, whoa, what just happened? And I like helping women being able to come back home to themselves to put that puzzle back together.
I like the puzzle analogy, and I like that your curiosity helped you heal.
Yeah.
I think that is something more people should embrace. And right, you're just bringing back like why I did it too. I knew I had to innately or instinctively, you got to do more than just, I've dealt with it a couple of times, and mine was a puzzle too. They called me the zebra among
Mm,
horses because I did everything right. Why is this weird stuff happening to me? But I believe in asking questions and believe in, being curious because every situation is different.
yeah.
And do they know? Do they have an idea of what caused your cancer? I'm just very,
Well, that this is an interesting story. So at my first appointment, my surgeon put her hand on my knee. So I'm 39. I'm racing as a competitive mountain bike racer, competitive triathlete, Xterras. I like weighed 110 pounds, stand on a podium, get a medal around my neck. Like I thought I was healthy. Like I thought that's healthy, right? And so I was like, how did this even happen? I'm 39. Like, isn't this for just old women? And you want to know what she told me? She said, lightning struck. And I needed to hear those words. I
right,
needed that peace at one of the lowest moments of my life. And I know her heart was in the right place, but it's actually one of the worst things that a doctor can say
right. Scary.
because, yeah, it took all of the responsibility away from me. And I'm not about victim blaming or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, it's one thing to like just ignore the fact that you have any kind of agency, which I did because lightning struck. Therefore, oh, gee, it must have just happened. And what I realized throughout, all of my years of my own trial and error and my research and my studies and working with my clients, like disease doesn't just wake up one day and say, yeah, I don't like that Holly Bertone, so I'm going to make her life miserable. Yeah. Hey, Holly, here's some breast cancer. Here's some autoimmune disease. Here's some debilitating chronic fatigue. Welcome to the rest of your life, which is going to be absolutely horrible. Disease doesn't work like that. It is years of chronic
Right.
inflammation from nutrition, from environmental toxins, from stress, from relationships, from just our thoughts, our emotions, from traumas. From, I mean, microplastics is the big keyword these days. Like all of these things, it's not like one thing. It's a storm of everything that accumulates over the years. And that disease is the end state. It's not like it's just going to be like, oh, hello, here I am, and we have these clues that help us to get to that place, but we ignore the clues. If we go to the doctor's like, oh, you're fine, you're just in perimenopause, or you're just in menopause, or and that we have these signs. Our bodies are intelligent. Our bodies are so brilliant. Our bodies constantly tell us what's going on. And when I was first diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, the whole phrase in the community was, oh, my body's attacking itself. Your body's actually protecting itself.
Right. It's trying to
And yeah, yeah. So it's just, I mean, especially you think like, where toxins are stored, in our fat cells to protect us so it doesn't go into our organs. Like that right there is brilliant. We're eating seed oils and sugars and food that's full of glyphosate and food that's full of plastics, like all of this stuff, right? And they're like, oh, now I've got the midlife middle. Well, there's, I mean, part of it, right, is just choices, but part of it is just the quality and what's going into our food and our environmental, all of everything in our environment as well. So, can I pinpoint what caused any of the diseases?
Right.
No, it's a lot of things, but it took, I don't even know, 10 years to figure out, hey, I have some agency in this. And it's not blame or shame from the past, it's from this point forward. I can take those steps to create a better life for myself. And I did.
That that is true. I was just asking because for me, they're like, do they checked it for like genetics? I'm like, no, it's not in my family. It doesn't run in my family. And it was too many. I had multiple things with me, right? Mine was issue related to environmental stuff. And I'm just glad I chose to work with doctors who let me ask questions, who were
Yeah.
researchers. And then I added like you did, the holistic aspect, the functional
Yeah.
side, because that's, I'm not going to pop a pills because I was in pain. Popping a pill wasn't going to help me. I
Yeah.
knew you, it's no, why is this, right? You just got to keep asking questions. And that is really, I'm sorry you had to deal with it for 10 years. Like, but I understand my 40s sucked, but my 50s have been really good.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I look at it, right?
Yeah.
We survived. Is that the right word? But
Yeah.
you're thriving, Holly, and I think that you're a
Yeah.
good role model for other women. I think that's why you are helping. We learn from hearing stories like yours,
Yeah.
and I'm assuming too, it also caused some burnout. I heard that's a common thing too,
Oh
burnout
yeah.
in general. Yeah,
Oh yeah. And that's part of it too, is, kind of back to that agency. Like, I weighed 110 pounds and I was athletic. So I thought that equaled health,
right,
you know, and I didn't realize that health is more than what's between your two big toes. Like, it's more than that number. And, things like drinking 6 cans of Coca-Cola a day. I mean, my snack every day was M&Ms and, peanut, of course, because protein. I mean, it just like, and, constant bagels and pasta and pizza, and probably 90 to 95%, probably 95% of my diet was ultra processed foods.
right.
But I weighed 110 pounds. So I was healthy because I was thin and I was fit. And it's being able to really change that perspective. And especially at this age, it's not about the number on the scale. Like, so many people are like, oh, I want to lose 20 pounds, or, I want to get into my summer body, or I've got this dress, and it's sleeveless. And but okay, is it about the weight? Is it about the number between your toes? Or is it, how do I want to live the next 20, 30, 40 years of my
Right.
life? What is that going to look like? That's going to look like based on those decisions today, and that's agency.
I like that. It is, as you were talking, it just made me, it just makes me bring back, some memories. And I was fortunate. I was eating, we're told to have dairy. Well, I have an issue with dairy. I didn't know because it was uh casein protein, which, as you
Mm-hmm.
know, takes about 4 hours for your stomach to digest. So there wasn't a connection for me. But also, Holly, my body's like, don't eat that, right?
Mm.
But it's been marketed as
Yeah.
being healthy for everybody, and it's not for everybody. And that's why I think what you're doing, you're helping us figure out we're all different, and you have
Yes.
to figure out there's not one solution. And I am so glad actually that I had had these health issues, if you look back on it, because I am healthier now.
Right.
I think I am anyway. No, but they tell me, and you have to still have to have your checkups, I'm sure. And you mentioned the Coke stuff. That was interesting when I had 10 years ago, like the chemo stuff, they were telling us how to eat healthy. Well, people were drinking Cokes and they were donating cookies in the chemo. And I knew I'd already, my nutrition stuff was in between my two cancers, right?
Mm.
So, but mine was related to, it was like the brain tumor stuff. But so I wanted to be the role model. So I would show up and I would bring apples and water. And this is how you guys are supposed, I had to, go down that route just because of everybody's different. Mine was
Yeah.
very aggressive, but I was shocked that they're telling us to eat healthy and they're giving us the people in their Coke and cookies.
Yeah.
And that's just not helpful. And thankfully, I don't, I'm not, into that. I haven't had probably a soda in over 15 years
Wow.
because
Yeah.
of like, you're like
Yeah.
me, the health issue. I'm like, we know it's not good.
Right.
And I'm just blabbing here, but it's really good, that like people like us, because we've gone through that, you're a really good role model and you're trying to help people with the issues they're dealing with. And not every woman's going to have cancer, breast cancer, right? And they have other things. And I just something that just popped into mind as you what you eat. A lot of women who are in midlife and can get diabetes,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes. And we were brought up with, the low fat and the low carb and calorie in, calorie out, and all of this stuff that, has run its course. And yet we still kind of follow it. And we're like, okay, I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to eat a salad. Well, now I'm eating salad and I'm hangry.
Right.
I'm starving. I'm hangry. The scale hasn't moved. Why isn't this working? I must be a failure. Yeah. And I talk about base camp cycle because it's really the same cycle, and it's really what perpetuates this yo-yo dieting. And it's also why 92% of New Year's resolutions, within like 3 to 4 weeks, it's because those first 2 weeks, you can run on excitement. Like you're like, I want to lose weight. I want to exercise more. I want to eat better. I want to do the thing, and usually it's like that trigger event, like a wedding or a graduation or class reunion, milestone birthday, summer, like whatever. Right. And you've got this trigger event. So like, okay, I'm going to go do the thing. You get excited, and that excitement lasts for 2 weeks. But then what happens is that the thing gets hard. And when the thing gets hard, you kind of hate doing it.
Right.
And then you're relying on willpower. Willpower is going to last you one more week. And then after that, anytime an obstacle comes, you're like, you know what? I'm just going to start on Monday. But the Monday never happens. So it's like the base camp, like you're constantly back at base camp. So this is why the yo-yo dieting is so legit, because we always come back to this place.
It's just so hard to make changes in general. And so I would believe you probably recommend like small steps because I think that will help you stick with something, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
That's the right word, small steps. Because I've known people, you've got to just stop eating this or that. I'm like, it was hard for me, Holly, to get off dairy. I had this holistic epidemiologist help me because it was addicting and I didn't realize how much
Mm,
it was in certain foods. And that's why, yeah, as you know, look and you got to read the labels if you're eating something that's processed. You've got to
yeah,
make sure, for me, it doesn't have that in there. And everybody has a great story. And you mentioned like just all the workouts and stuff like that and crazy diets. I think that could burn you out. That's kind of going back to the
absolutely.
burnout thing. You can get
Yeah, yeah,
out if you're not enjoying it,
yeah.
especially.
And I think a big thing too is, when we're younger, we chase after the thing, the career, the spouse, the kids,
Mhm.
the house, the all the things. And then, because we're women, we just like everything goes into taking care of the thing. And we forget
Yes.
about ourselves. So we're now
Yes.
completely like disassociated, disconnected from ourselves. And we're out taking care of all of the things. And we're now looking at these things for, number one, for our validation, to tell us that we're valued as a human being instead of inside. And then number two, we do all the things, we don't have any time for ourselves. We are now living in burnout. So we're in burnout, and then we're like, oh, I need to go do CrossFit or cardio, or and we try to do some crazy workout, which is going to increase our cortisol even more.
Right, which is not good for stress, right?
And again, we're back to base camp.
Right, and that's kind of what I learned too, that the cortisol levels, I like you probably, I don't know if you're like me, I stay away from caffeine.
Yeah.
And I used to like it when I was younger, right? And it made me run farther. But was it good? It's you just got to find, I believe find something that you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And especially you got to stay active, but not crazy active. I shouldn't say
Right.
crazy active. I'm still considered, my family thinks I'm crazy, but whatever. But I'm still here and it makes me
Yes.
happy, right?
Yes. I was gonna say you're alive. That's
That's what it is. And
yeah.
I don't know. I've just met so many great people along the way, and it's so good that you're helping support people. And I just want to know, I guess the next thing is, if you're, how do you know if you're trapped in something? I think that's something too. What is a common trap for people? They're telling themselves it's okay, or they're just afraid to move forward. Is that what it is? Like,
Yeah. And you know what I hear all the time is that so many women are there, they just like, it's like a justification. And it's, to me, or it's to themselves or to someone else, that they are stuck in the situation, that there are no options. There's always options. Those
mhm,
options may not be ones that you like. They might be difficult options. They might require change. They might require difficult conversations, but there's always options out there. And there's
right.
also the option of the cost of inaction, and that's not doing anything. That's also an option. But I think so often, like, I hear a lot of, like, I mean, they literally are in court, pleading their case, pleading their defense, right? Of, this is why I can't change, this is why I can't do the thing. And and it's really, that's fine, like, if that's you and you're not ready and you don't want to, that's fine. But I think that's what keeps us so stuck, and it keeps us suffering too, is when we're in this place and we're like, and our brain wants to keep us in homeostasis. Our brain is going to fight tooth and nail to keep us in homeostasis. Our brain does not want to change. So I
Right.
understand, like, it is a primal response, but at some point you're like, okay, I think it's time to make a change. Sometimes that change might be small things, sometimes it might be something big, but like you said, like, it is always just one step at a time.
I've learned that, um, yeah, right. I've learned that from my experience and the doctors and people, a coach that has helped me because it's important. We also, I have that mindset back in the day. I can only do this if I can only get it. No one can help me. That's kind of, maybe it has to do with being female, right? You
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, it's like the dishwasher, like, I'm the only one that can load the dishwasher. No one else can load
Properly,
the
right?
dishwasher,
Properly,
right?
right. Oh my God, that is so funny. Yeah, you just gotta also be try to be a good role model. And I always not worry too much about what people think about me. I mean that helps move forward too.
Yeah,
And I think I'm also, my background like is in communication. So it's really got to be careful how you say things. But that, again, that could be your affects your perfectionism.
yeah,
But you
yeah,
still have to be careful in how you're communicating with other people, and that affects your like relationships and your career. And but then at the same time, I'm a believer in being you or yourself,
right, right.
and we're all unique. And I like that you're embracing that. And I also was looking at something here about you have like a Rocky framework. Can you explain that a little bit?
I do. If we still have a few minutes, I would
Yeah, we
love
have
to.
a few more minutes. I'm just
Yeah.
curious about your Rocky framework.
Oh my goodness. I love talking about the Rocky framework. It is inspired by the original Rocky movie circa 1976.
Uh-huh.
And so it's really what I help my students go through to come back home to themselves, because so often there's so much, overwhelming and contradictory advice out there. It's like, what do I even do? Well, the first place is we actually start backwards, because what I'm looking for is sustainable results. I'm not about the quick fix summer bod. Like, that's not my lane. I'm more into, the woman who wants that long-term sustainable result so that she can have that vibrant life 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now. So the very first thing we do is rear view mirror, and we go back and we make peace and forgiveness with the situation that got us here, the person or people, and then more importantly, with ourselves. And that is like taking a clog sink and just running that hot water down. So we peel back the layers until, and the best part, like, I know a student's ready to move on when they're like, Holly, I'm not triggered anymore. And I was like, oh, well done. And that is so beautiful. Like, I know it might not sound like a lot, but for someone who is, high stressed, right, and high achiever, and like always on that high alert and that high adrenaline, that high cortisol, to say my body actually feels safe, and I don't feel so anxious anymore, and I'm not triggered. Like that right there is huge. And then that takes us to O, own your ship with a P, like a boat. I like to keep it G rated. And we talked a lot earlier about personal responsibility. So I'm going to skip over this one because we already kind of covered this one. And then so ROC is create your future self. And this is when we look at not just that, I want more energy. It's, oh, I want to create a lifestyle. It's not, I want to lose 20 pounds. It's, I want to eat a lifestyle of eating this, healthy food, and it's not about the doing, it's about the youing, and really looking at what that future looks like for you. So we've got ROCK is keep the vision, not the view. And this is really like when we talk about the obstacles, there is a 100% chance, 100% chance, it is 100% guaranteed that there are going to be obstacles that are going to come to derail you. Like it's just life, right? And so this is really where, we can look at that big picture and realize, okay, it might be 1%, I might have a 1% growth or change. I'm going to celebrate that. That is a big deal. And or I have a setback and I'm going to celebrate that as a lesson instead of viewing it as a failure. So we've
Right.
got R is rear view mirror, O own your ship with a P like a boat, C is create your future self, and K is keep the vision, not the view. And then Y is come back home to you. And that's really where it's all about, is having that confidence and that determination, and just like this whole different vibe of you've got so much noise outside with just humans in your life, with work, with responsibilities, with social media, with news, and then you've got all the noise inside. So coming back home to you is when we can actually have that, that quiet, like your body's like, I just feel home. I feel safe. And it's taking all of these disparate pieces of you and coming back home to fill your own cup so that you can wake up and have that vibrant energy to go out and do the things that you want to do, to go out and be at peak performance at your career, and go out and be the best, spouse and partner and mom, and for your kids and everything. So that's really what it's all about, is just having that superpower inside you and coming back home to you.
I like that. You're kind of owning it as well. Kind of how you're, I think that's really great and really helpful. I like that, the Rocky
Yeah, thank
framework.
you.
And when did you, I'm just real curious, but when did you start your podcast? I was just curious because
Yeah, so I'm trying to think. It was 2 years ago.
okay.
Yeah, so I
It's
think I'm up to
really,
like 120 episodes, maybe give or take.
people are
Yeah.
learning so much from podcasts,
Yeah.
because they're hearing our voices and they're connecting better with the host or whoever. Some people don't have guests, but sometimes I don't have guests, but I'm learning from having guests.
Yeah.
It's always helpful because we don't know everything. And it
Right.
does gives you an open mind. I think that's important to move forward in life, is to be open to listening different perspectives. And I think it's really helpful.
Yeah, and I was actually scared to death. Like I was like, I am going to start a podcast over my dead body. Like I had no interest in doing it. I don't even know how it happened. I ended up launching accidentally. It's a
Right.
long story. But but it's like it became almost like an addiction.
It is
Like I love it. I absolutely love it.
I've definitely seen it has grown more since COVID happened. And I think because we just want to connect more, we're just not, people felt stagnant,
Yeah. Yeah.
probably. And it's just a good, at first I thought, what? Same with me, like, why did I do this? But I get energy from it in a good
Yeah.
way.
Yes.
And that's really, I think it's just helpful. So can you tell us where people can learn more about you, Holly?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And especially if you enjoy the interview, especially if you love the Rocky framework,
Yeah.
I have a private podcast, a secret podcast behind closed doors, and we actually do a deep dive into the entire Rocky framework. So every single one, we've got a special episode, and you get a health assessment. And I will actually go over the health assessment with you personally, which is really cool and a lot of fun to just work with individuals and kind of help them get on the right path to improving their health. So that's at podcastholly.com. And if you forget the URL, you're like, what was that podcast Holly was talking about? That's exactly what it is. It's podcastholly.com. And so that's the free private podcast. And then I love to play on Instagram. My Instagram account had a comeback story of its own. So I started a new account recently. So
Uh-huh.
still small and growing, but come say hello on Instagram. And it's just holly.bertone. And I answer all of my DMs. So come say hello
Oh,
there.
that's awesome. Yeah, I think Instagram is more fun than Facebook. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I really appreciate your time. And for those that are listening, I'll include those links that she mentioned in the description, just in case you're not, sitting there writing it down. But this has been awesome, Holly. You're very inspirational and motivational, and I love connecting with people like you.
Oh, thank you so much, Bridget, for your time and on the show.
Have a great day, everybody.